49ers take their first loss of the season, face some adversity. Time for a bounce back. Got the Minnesota Vikings coming up on Monday Night Football in Week 7. And we got an injury update on Christian McCaffrey and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. It is another Winky Wednesday episode. We'll introduce you to our weekly guest, which you probably already know, Nicholas Winkler, in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Wink. There's a lot of listeners out there that are none too pleased with you right now. They're real happy with you for about 5 weeks of the season because your predictions preseason are 100% coming true right now. 5-0 to start, taking a loss in Week 6 against the Cleveland Browns. Have you altered those predictions? Do you have the power to alter those predictions at this point? Because there's 2 more L's coming on that preseason prediction to put the 49ers at 5-3 after 8 weeks. Could we see after a 5-game winning streak, a 3-game losing streak now for these San Francisco 49ers?
I sure hope so. I mean, I'm getting a lot of like, this is all your fault, Wink. I can't believe you did this. And it's like, guys, I really don't have anything to do with the game. I think you guys maybe forget that. And it's funny and it's comical. And at the same time, it made sense to me, right? I mean, I saw the 49ers coming off a big win at Dallas, going on the road to play Cleveland Browns squad that was coming off of a bye. Like, it just made sense. And then the 49ers showed up, played a hard-fought game. Cleveland's a great defense. They played extremely well, but you don't like losing to a third-string quarterback. You don't like all the injuries. You don't like the bad play penalties called late. I mean, so many things went wrong in this football game for the 49ers, and they were still a field goal kick away from winning the game there at the end. You don't like the play call before the kick, too. I mean, I could get in the stink a lot about this game. I'm not going to. I know I have another L coming up this week. And with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey still questionable, still maybe doubtful when it comes to McCaffrey, like, why haven't you heard anything yet? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like that my prediction may come true as well this week. I don't want it to, guys, just so we know. I'm not rooting for me to be right at all. It all made sense to me. And I hope I'm wrong, guys. I really do.
Hey, Croc, so the 49ers kind of facing their first adversity of the 2023 season. It was almost too much of a breeze for the first 5 weeks. We knew they weren't going to go undefeated this season. Croc, in your mind, what do you think the 49ers have to do to kind of flip that back and get back in the same mode they were for the first 5 weeks after this loss?
Just get back to their game of football. I think they've done a terrific job of playing a certain way. Obviously, you want guys to continue to be healthy. I think that's been a big part of it. They've missed a guy here and there, but they haven't had to miss multiple guys, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We don't know what's going on with Christian McCaffrey as of Tuesday, October 17th at 10:55 a.m. But maybe later today you hear more about how the IR is going for him. Maybe Adam Schefter puts out a report or whatnot. I think that'd be big with how we kind of view this road game against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. But hopefully that extra day gives McCaffrey, Deebo, Trent Williams more time to kind of recover, and you just get back to how you play football, which is really good on both sides of the ball, complementing each other, and playing in a dome, not outside in wet rain where the ball might slip out of Brock Purdy's hands.
Well, I do have good news coming from Matt Mayoko just before we started recording here. And so an update on that in just a moment. We'll talk about the injuries with McCaffrey, especially because we kind of think we know where Deebo and Trent Williams are day-to-day here going into to Week 7. And as some of the listeners know, the regulars, the everydayers out there, they know we do a segment from time to time called the Wink and the Stink. And it was tough to find things for you to stink on, Wink, in the first 5 weeks of the season. One thing we did last week is maybe jinx the heck out of the special teams, right? Not so much the punting game, but the kicking game. Jake, I always want to call him Nick Moody, former 49ers draft pick. Jake Moody missed his first 2 kicks of the season, including a game winner. Sitting here watching Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys got this kicker who didn't even play college football. He's a soccer guy. He comes up, kicks a game-winning field goal for the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. The 49ers third rounder couldn't make that big of a kick. So is that something you'd be thinking on more? The kicking game? Is it the penalties? What's the one major thing that rubbed you wrong from that loss on Sunday?
Well, I don't like the play call right before the kick. I think you got to trust in your guys to go out there and get a few extra yards, get closer, give your rookie kicker a better opportunity to make a field goal in a wet stadium, right? I mean, it's raining all day. It's probably a little bit sloppy out there. You want to give your guys, yeah, and extremely windy. And you see the guys are like, I measured the wind, and it started here, and the spin took it here, and the wind took it here. If it's 3 yards closer, he's in. It's like, okay, yeah.
I saw that. I don't have it to pull up on the screen right now, but I didn't know we were going that deep into like kicking and field goal analytics. That was wild. It was like, okay, here's where the kick started. Here's the starting line. The wind was this many miles per hour, so it pushed it this much. So if you're 3 yards closer, then the kick that was, a yard and a half outside or whatever of the goalpost might have been inside the goalpost. I'd never seen that before. I didn't know that was a thing that existed.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people out there want to find reasons, right? They want to make this make sense to me. And so that was like their way of being like, look, if we'd only gotten a few more yards, it would have been no problem. What I don't like is, you save that timeout, right, for a third down kick where you're like, okay, if there's a problem with the snap or the hold, we can call a timeout and do it again. Well, now you're losing a little bit of faith in our guys, Pepper and Wisnowski, who've been amazing on all these snaps and kicks and holds and everything. And I don't know. I just didn't like it at all. You were moving the ball. You were looking good. You don't have your starting running back. You don't have Christian McCaffrey, but you've got these two guys, right? You got to trust in your guys to go out there and get a few yards and make a play. And I really dislike kind of just settling there at the end. I don't know, that rubbed me the wrong way. But all that being said, and we've talked about the injuries and we've talked about this and that, they were missing Dre Greenlaw too, another key component to that defense. And Burks looked good. He filled in well there, but I really want to see this squad at full speed, at full health. I mean, everybody does. The 49ers do. We saw what it looked like. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens this week. I love that they have the extra day going into Monday night. But again, it's another road game. It's another tough test. The Vikings coming off a big win for them. Yeah, it wasn't against a great squad of the Chicago Bears, but they have some confidence. And the 49ers right now might be questioning themselves a little bit because there were so many missed opportunities throughout that football game on Sunday.
More coming up on the Christian McCaffrey injury, especially. We do have an update there from Matt Miyoko, and we will turn the page a little bit to the Minnesota Vikings as well next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for your daily fantasy draft, scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed fits on your roster. So let's see what Vinny has picked out for eBay's guaranteed fit fantasy picks of the week. And how about second-year wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, George Pickens? He got further locked in as a second-year wide receiver so far this year, and before the Week 6 bye was really playing some good football, more than just that one-dimensional deep threat guy. He was making some plays after the catch, 130 yards and a big touchdown on 10 targets against the Ravens. Could be becoming Kenny Pickett's number one there in Pittsburgh. So Rams and Jaguars aren't the easiest draws the next two games, but Pickens' physical talent can rise above them with his size and field stretching ability. So for those DFS lineups, take a peek at second-year wide receiver George Pickens. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts and accessories for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED lights, roof racks, bumpers. I got a fender flare from eBay Motors. Couldn't have been simpler. It was a big old green check there. I knew it was the exact fit, got it home, and it was the exact fit. Slapped it on my car, saved a whole bunch of money. So whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So real quick, before we get to that, the injury updates, Croc, what do you think about the idea that Kyle Shanahan didn't get Jake Moody close enough to make that field goal in the conditions a little bit easier? Can we start to point at Kyle for the L on Sunday?
My thought process typically is you don't want to put the game in the hands of a kicker or on the leg of a kicker if you don't have to. So ideally, you would like to either not have to kick at all and just go down and score. Or if you do have to kick a field goal, I'm not sure how much of a difference 3 yards would have made. Like, again, we could talk about, well, the wind was this and he kicked from here. And if he was 3 yards closer, but if he get 3 yards closer, it could have been something different. Like, well, if they were 1 yard closer now because he kind of hit it this way, it all depends on how he hits it on that specific kick. But ultimately for me, I understand the weather. I understand, the issues there. We saw some of the passes hit the ground, balls come out the quarterback hands weird. Maybe you don't want to risk running more plays and potentially turn the ball over. We've seen guys fumble in that type of weather. I can go back to, 2022, Deebo Samuel inside the 5 fumbling against the Chicago Bears, week 1, just because the conditions weren't as ideal. So I don't have a problem with it. You got the ball to around the 25-yard line. That essentially is kind of a chip shot for kickers, and he just kind of missed it. So I don't blame anybody but the kicker for missing the field goal.
Last bit, looking back before we start looking forward a little bit more. Wink, we and look, I did not expect in the middle of the 2023 season to be talking about hand size. We did that for a long time with Alex Smith. 9.25 inch hands for Brock Purdy. You worried about Purdy in the rain now after seeing Sunday?
I mean, that ball looked real slippery, didn't it? It looked like he couldn't get a great grip on it. So that definitely is a little bit troubling. You look at Purdy and they talk about why he went so late in the draft, right? And that's one of the things that might have kind of docked him down a little bit is hand size. It didn't hurt Alex Smith. We never really saw that.
It wasn't even hand size by itself. It was just the total package. There's a reason he went in the 7th round. Not a big arm, not a physically impressive guy. He's not that 6'5". Doesn't look like Justin Herbert when he walks in 6'6" and can throw the ball out of the stadium. But he has so many other gifts, which is what has made him play such great ball. So I'm not worried about Brock Purdy. I'm not worried about hand size. But if it's a problem, we got to fix it. Does that mean he's got to wear a glove in the ring? Does that mean they need to squirt the ball more in practice, right? Did they have a squirt coach this week? Because that's on the coaching staff if they weren't squirting the ball with water, knowing that rain was in the forecast leading up to week 6.
Also, someone tagged me on Twitter. Shout out to Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days. Mahomes has the same hand size as Brock Purdy. So he hasn't had any issues throwing in inclement weather. Brock Purdy, again, now we could talk about hand size. Maybe there's – and again, we're trying to figure out why the ball came out the way it does. It could just be, just the ball was wet, and that's the issue. Some guys might have a stronger grip. Maybe their fingers are stronger. Like, that's a real thing. I remember when I was younger, I used to work those. It's like that thing. It has like that spring in it, and you strengthen your grip up.
Those, right?
Yeah. So just different things. Maybe that could be it. But at the end of the day, I'd expect the 49ers and the players to be more prepared to play in that type of weather. And Kyle Shanahan wanted them to go through the adversities of playing in the game. I'm pretty sure he would rather win. But being able to correct some of the issues that you had, whether it is maybe having somebody squirt the balls just so you can get used to it, or just handling it different, maybe play calling a little bit different. There were some good passes, though, from Brock. So I think we'll focus on the times the ball slipped out of his hands or the time the balls came out of his hands weird. But there were also some times where, hey, man, he threw a really good ball downfield. And was it the wet ball that helped him throw that ball downfield, or was the hand too small then? So I think
was the wet ball the reason that Ayuk didn't make a couple of those big plays right down the field? I mean, that there was some pretty passes where you're like, oh, that hit his hands. Like it was a tough catch. It would have been difficult, but you expect Brandon Ayuk to make those catches these days because we've seen him do it. And what I've not mentioned too is they took George Kittle out of this game. He got 1 catch for 1 yard coming off of a 3 touchdown performance the week before. Like, props to the Cleveland Browns defense. They really did a great job. They forced the 49ers over and over again to have these 3rd and longs. I mean, it was a rough day for the 49ers offense altogether. We do the wink wish watch, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, he only, put 2 of 6 inside the 20. But then you look at where he's punting from, right? His own 34, his own 8, his own 25, his own 18, his own 24. Like, it was a difficult day for the 49ers offense to move the football. And you got to credit the Browns for winning that football game.
Yeah,
they had a good defense. We knew that heading in. We knew that it was pretty. It had been a dominant defense. We knew that the guys on the back end could play ball. We know that Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett were good. I think the biggest thing was we didn't know what it would look like if the 49ers offense played bad because they hadn't up until that point.
Right.
So, like, I think some people would think that, everybody's just looking over the Browns. It was like, well, we haven't seen a poor performance from the 49ers offense. We just haven't. And then the Browns have a 3rd-string quarterback, PJ Walker. Like, that's a game where, of course, you would walk in and assume, 49ers is going to dominate this game. If not anything for just them having a 3rd-string quarterback. And it just didn't happen. It just for various reasons. And but one thing I would say is I would much rather lose to a 3rd-string quarterback in the Cleveland Browns than lose to a team that is considered a contender like the Dallas Cowboys or Philly later, right? Like, win those games. The 3rd-string quarterback is just, 49ers just had a bad game. Played in inclement weather. But when you lose to a team that people see as good, then it comes off as, you can't play with that team. And does that start to get in your brain? So I do actually prefer them to lose. If you're going to lose a game, I prefer them to go undefeated. But if you're going to, lose a game as Nicholas Winkler predicted, then I would hope it's against the Browns, so you could just kind of throw that game away.
Well, everything's stacked up against them, right? I mean, it was, like you said, inclement weather on the road, that 10 a.m. start time. The team had 2 weeks to prepare for the 49ers, a lot of game film, and then the injuries start stacking up. Like, everything that could go wrong in that football game did for the 49ers. And they still had a chance to win the game, and they lost it. Like, that's a tough loss, but it's one you can swallow. It's one that's like, all right, let's move on. Let's go to Minnesota. Let's put up a better performance this week.
Yeah, and we come full circle. You mentioned Kittle and guys like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was awesome, number 6 for the Browns last week. And I remember loving him coming out. He had a good rookie season. Wasn't good last year. He's playing like he looks like he's an all-pro out there for the Browns. Dalvin Tomlinson was winning inside. The big part of stopping the run, right, was that front 7. They were covering guys in the back end. So as we stated post game, like those guys get paid too. You tend to want to, as a fan, look at your own team. Why did we lose the game, right? But they were pretty good, and they helped. They won the game maybe in a lot of ways, and so the Browns defense for sure is legit. And as Croc put it, you don't want to leave it up to the kicker. You don't want to leave it up to the refs and the 49ers. That margin was a little too narrow, and so in the end, you got to take it upon yourself to go win that football game, and they did not.
I do have one question for y'all. I know that not every team that the 49ers face is going to have a defense like the Cleveland Browns that are equipped to maybe play against the 49ers the way that they did. But there was an interesting stat that Wagner kind of put out there on ESPN, and I saw Greg Newsome. Greg and I, we've been following each other for a while, cornerback for the Cleveland Browns. But so he retweeted it. That was how I actually saw it. But they ran man 71% of the time. And the interesting thing, and I'm going to see if I have it on the, what do you call it, the bookmarks here. Did I bookmark that tweet? But the interesting thing was really more so not just the amount of man, but just the success that they had against the 49ers while running that kind of coverage. All right. So
yeah,
I'm just going through my,
you got it pulled up. Yeah. There you go. So Cleveland was in man on 71% of dropbacks, their highest this season. Brock Purdy was 7 of 17 for 96 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 sacks, and a 12 QBR on those 71% of dropbacks that Cleveland was in man coverage. Browns are allowing only 7.5 QBR in man coverage on the season. So Brock Purdy was ahead of the league 7.5 against them with a 12 QBR. So yeah, they're manning up on defense and doing a good job of it. And the Brock has seen a lot of looks this year. Like if nothing else, the 49ers are learning a lot right now, and Brock is learning a lot. Still hasn't played a full season of football yet in the NFL.
With Christian McCaffrey, or if he plays, but let's say hypothetically speaking, they're like, all right, McCaffrey, we need you to kind of rest up. All right, Deebo, you're kind of banged up this 2 weeks in a row now. Let's kind of like have you chill out a little bit. Do you maybe see teams like the Vikings and Cincinnati try to steal that type of game plan? Like, all right, man, they got George Kittle. They can't even figure out how to get him the ball consistently. They got one receiver, Brandon Ayuk. Maybe we bracket him, dude, but we're playing a lot of man. And we're going to force Brock to make all these super throws or tight window throws. And now he has to be far more accurate, and his room for error is much slimmer. Do teams start to try to do something like that? That'll be something to watch for us and for the fans.
Yeah, I think it'd be smart of them to try and do that, right? I mean, there's kind of a blueprint now of how you take Brock Purdy out of a football game with that horrible QBR during man coverage. But my question is, do the Vikings and the Bengals and those have the same sort of defense or guys that can play as well as Cleveland did in man, or are they just going to expose certain weaknesses that the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan can take advantage of?
Yeah. Do you have the dudes that can cover? And then a lot of teams like to play zone against the 49ers because they can bring more guys up to the line of scrimmage and stop the run. Do you have the dudes that stop the run and in coverage like the Browns did to play that way? So that's another part of it as well. But you can bet teams are going to steal from successful teams against other. That's what happened. That's what the New England Patriots, was Bill Belichick did to beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, held them to 3 points because they watched Vic Fangio's defense, and it was great against the Rams that year. And he said, well, that's what we're doing. And it worked in the Super Bowl. So teams are absolutely going to steal from other teams when it's working, especially if they're playing the 49ers. How about those Minnesota Vikings? And how about that Christian McCaffrey injury? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Do you ever feel like your brain is kind of getting in its own way? Trying to fall asleep at night and racing thoughts just keep you awake. Your brain's kind of getting in the way of you taking care of all the business you need to take care of day to day, week to week in your life. Like, you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't get it done. Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try BetterHelp. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You're not racing around everywhere after work to try to get there, in your lunch break trying to get somewhere, find parking, fighting traffic. It's completely online when you need it, flexible. You fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched to a licensed therapist. If it doesn't work out with that therapist, it's okay. You switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today, and our listeners get 10% off your first month. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So we have an update from Matt Mayoko on Christian McCaffrey. And this is as of Tuesday morning. As I understand it, Matt says, Christian McCaffrey's injury is more of a pain tolerance thing. The extra day helps since the 49ers are playing on Monday Night Football. At this point, it's not out of the question. McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams can all be available on Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings. So there we go. That's the latest we have on Christian McCaffrey. I don't know the details on the injury yet. I don't know if that MRI information as of this recording has been released, but Mayoko's heard something, and that's pretty good news because pain is something that Christian McCaffrey clearly can get over.
Yeah, and if he doesn't go, or if Deebo doesn't go come Monday night, I want to see a lot more creativity. I want to see a lot more Ronnie Bell out there. I want to see a lot more excitement. I want to see them be creative with Jordan Mason in the backfield. Can they? I mean, maybe they can't. Maybe he only has the one thing, which is just grab the ball and run straight ahead, and that will limit what the 49ers can do going forward. Maybe Elijah Mitchell really gets a healthy dose there in the backfield. It's just the Minnesota Vikings have shown this year that they're not a very good football team. and their defense has let them down. And last year they were winning all those 1-score games. This year they're losing them, right? So this is a game where, yeah, you're on the road, and yeah, you might not have all your guys. I'd love to have all our guys, but no team has that all year long. It just doesn't happen. So you got to find a way to win the football game. And what's the best way for the 49ers to do that? To me, it's their defense. Hopefully Dre Greenlaw's back. To me, that's almost the biggest thing for the 49ers is he's a tone setter. Yeah, Fred Warner gets all the pub, he gets all the love, but Dre Greenlaw's out there smacking people in the mouth. He's out there. Yeah, he gets the occasional personal foul penalty, but he's just a tough hitter. Guys don't want to run over the middle if you know Dre Greenlaw's going to be there. Like, hopefully the 49ers are healthy, but if they're not, I want to see something different. I don't want to see the same thing that we just saw against the Cleveland Browns because it didn't work out for him.
And one of the things I'll talk about, and I mentioned it a little bit, I think it was on yesterday's episode, is I think it hurt the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan's game plan more to lose McCaffrey, lose Deebo early, or especially Deebo, lose him early, and lose them during the game when, especially this week, I think Christian McCaffrey is always a huge part of the game plan, but I think Deebo was too. Deebo had already had the ball twice. They were showing wide back stuff, right? And so I think that was a big part of the game plan. And all of a sudden, Kyle Shanahan's looking at his call sheet, and you just erase half of it, right? And so I think that was part of why it hurts more. And if those guys aren't available going into the game plan will look different, and that'll kind of change everything of how it looks. So I think that was a big part of it as well that kind of hurt Kyle. And if there's one thing that Kyle Shanahan is much better at, it's preparing for a game, knowing what the game plan is, attacking a defense, using their rules against them. I think changing on the fly is a little bit more difficult for him and probably not his strongest suit, in game management. And not to say that that's the reason the 49ers lost the game, but that's not an ideal scenario when you got a game plan and all of a sudden it's like, okay, most of what my plan was is not even, I can't even try to use it. Not only is it not working, I can't use it because those guys don't exist anymore.
And also missing a guy like Trent Williams for a little bit of time in the game, and then having him come back but be kind of hampered with a lower body injury, and then going through this week, he's been more day to day, and is he going to be 100%? That's kind of big too for a guy who he has to protect quarterback's blind side, and he really kind of anchors that entire offensive line and makes certain guys look a little bit better than maybe what they are, right? Like, what is it going to look like if now whoever's at left guard, whether it's Banks or gosh, can't think of the guy's name right now, but
Jalen Moore is the guy who came in for I think it might have only been one snap. I can't remember if the series ended right after he got hurt, but Jalen Moore was in I think only for one
snap. Okay,
one snap for Trent before Trent came back. Did you hear Trent talking about it? He said it's kind of like apparently Trent was and I got this from I was in the car and I was listening to Greg Papa talk about it, and basically Trent went back in the game because he didn't want to have to let Jalen Moore play against Myles Garrett. He's like, that's unfair to him. So I'm going to go out there hobbled and try to finish this game. So if it's pain threshold, I think Trent and Christian McCaffrey will probably play through it. But yeah, that's really funny the way that's put, because that could definitely wreck things for you. And I saw something I never saw in my life before, which was 71 get tossed by Myles Garrett. Like, Myles Garrett's the freakiest of the freaks that exist right now in the NFL. Like, did you see him running down Christian McCaffrey on the sideline on that touchdown drive at the beginning of the game too? Myles Garrett is out of this world freak of nature.
Yeah, that's why people still say he's the best defensive end in the game. And if you look at stats, you can find guys that have better statistical seasons. But I bet if you're asking about impact just on the play, how much, again, but prior to the game, we talked about how a team tried to, like, all right, they shadowed him. Like, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Where he was on the left side, they had two guys on that side. Then he moved over before the snap to the other side. Then those two guys went to the other side. So then he moved back to the other side. And I mean, this is all like within the play. And then they had to call timeout. They were going to get a delay game. Like, that's Myles Garrett. So yeah, I commend him for saying, you know what, Jalen Moore, I don't think you really want those problems. I'll kind of thug it out in this game. And then, next week with whoever the Vikings have on defense, their defense has been kind of bad. I'll let you maybe I'll try to get back right then. But Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, I'll kind of spare you this moment.
I'd love to see a poll from tackles around the NFL, right? Where it's just tackles. And they're like, all right, rate defensive ends, rate outside pass rushers, guys you don't want to play against, and then kind of see who the top of the tier was. I mean, I think we'd pretty much figure it out, right? It's all the guys that are getting the sacks, the Mason Crosbys, the Nick Bosas, the Joey Bosas when he's healthy. But I just think that would be fun, if it was just those guys. Like, who do you not want to line up across?
I bet it's Myles Garrett.
They do,
because he's the biggest and strongest and like fastest out of
the combination. It's got to be difficult. They do those kind of polls, but I don't know if they limit it to just tackles or able to speak about just defensive ends, because that would be even more interesting, because I know they do the player polls, but I think you get some kind of yahoos with some weird votes in there and voting for, player. They don't see the whole league, so they can only vote for the guys in their division. They play twice, and this guy's pretty good. But Danielle Hunter, he's on the other side for the Minnesota Vikings. Their defense is not great. I don't think we have to check the weather. They play in a dome in Minnesota, right? So no rain for Purdy, so we're good there. Wink, do you want to change your prediction? Your preseason prediction has been 100% so far. Do you want to change those? Is there like a mojo that you can't mess with the 49ers? Because you did have them going on to winning the Super Bowl even after losing 3 straight games here. What do you think here before we get out of here? Wink's prediction for Monday Night Football, Minnesota Vikings.
I want to be wrong, guys. I really do. I hope I'm wrong going into this weekend. How about we just leave it at that?
Wow. You can imagine people would start freaking out if you lose the Vikings. Vikings 2-4 right now. I don't think they're that great of a football team. Kirk Cousins, we'd have to start talking about that. What if Cousins has a great game, Purdy has a bad game? And then all of a sudden we open up the door to, oh man, Kirk Cousins, maybe he could end up a 49er again eventually. Like those are headlines. Those are conversations I don't want to have. So handle your business, 49ers. There's
no Justin Jefferson, so that helps. And they're kind of leaning on like young guys. You got Jordan Addison out there. They're still trying to figure out how to get him involved a lot. TJ Hawkinson, that's kind of been their go-to guy at the tight end position. But I think losing Jefferson with how much they relied on him just to try to win games, him being out, he makes it very difficult for their offense. You can't really get anything going on the ground with Madison. I have Madison on my fantasy team. It's kind of like non-existent.
That's a bad situation. I think it's worse for the Vikings to lose Justin Jefferson than for the 49ers to lose Christian McCaffrey by a lot.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, you're talking about probably the best wide receiver in football. I don't like what I'm seeing though on Twitter this morning. I'm scrolling around and I'm just seeing, oh yeah, sit Deebo, sit Christian. This the Vikings will be fine. Like rest these guys up, give them 2 weeks, and it's like no. You go out and you play football. If you can get out there and you can win, you're coming off a loss. Like get out there if you're healthy.
We will do our crossover with Luke Braun, the host of Locked On Vikings. Get to know that team a little bit more. And we're going to have an extra episode too, as well, because there's one more episode before that Monday nighter, but we'll go live and we'll talk with the folks out there and preview everything. Keys to victory, of course, coming up as well on Locked On 49ers for week 7, and come back and have it all broken down post game as well, as we do every stinking day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Wink, thanks for joining us once again. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen. Croc and I back tomorrow. Locked On 49ers.
See you.
Subscribe to this video.